Talking of hit movies, Shawshank Redemption, obviously,
great.
one of your most... Yes, everyone loves that movie. And if that's one of those movies, anyone puts their, best films of all time list together, it's always on.
It's always on there.
It's always on there. And yet, that film has never been a hit.
Tanked at the box office.
You've seen The Shawshank Redemption, or at least you think you have. But what if the version in your memory is missing something? Not big plot points or character arcs, but the quieter things, the blink and you miss it visuals, the deliberate choices in background details, and a specific number on a prison door that might mean more than you realized. In a film built on subtlety, freedom, and buried secrets, even a single frame can carry a second meaning. Let's break the surface and dig into 18 things hiding in plain sight. One of them might just change how you see the entire story. Number 18. The Royal River. One small but meaningful detail in The Shawshank Redemption is the mention of the Royal River. In the film, this is where Andy Dufresne throws his revolver, shortly after the murder of his wife and her lover. While the reference seems insignificant at first, it has a deeper connection to Stephen King's broader fictional universe. The Royal River is also featured in King's novella The Body, which was adapted into the 1986 film Stand By Me. In that story, the characters famously wade into the Royal River and are attacked by leeches. This shared location isn't a coincidence. Stephen King often reuses fictional towns, rivers, and landmarks to build a consistent world across his stories. The Royal River is one of those recurring elements. Director Frank Darabont, who has adapted multiple King stories, likely included the reference intentionally. It's a subtle Easter egg that rewards attentive viewers or King fans familiar with his interconnected settings, especially the fictional Maine towns that appear repeatedly in his work. The Royal River in Shawshank doesn't impact the plot directly, but it adds quiet depth. Its appearance connects Shawshank with the emotional, nostalgic world of Stand By Me. Whether it's the same river or just a shared name is left open, but the nod reinforces how layered and carefully constructed King's fictional geography really is. If this hidden detail amazed you, the next will completely change how you see the film. Number 17. How many people are there? One often overlooked detail in The Shawshank Redemption is the inconsistent number of prisoners shown throughout the film. While Shawshank is meant to be a medium-sized prison, the number of background inmates varies noticeably between scenes. This wasn't an intentional creative choice, but rather the result of a production challenge. During filming in Mansfield, Ohio, the crew relied heavily on local extras, including former inmates and townspeople. Many of them had limited availability, which meant they could only appear for 1 or 2 days of shooting. Because of this, the filmmakers were forced to rotate extras constantly. As a result, some scenes appear much more crowded than others, and background characters rarely stay consistent. One day, the yard is packed with inmates. The next, it's half empty. Attentive viewers may also spot the same actors appearing in different scenes in slightly different roles or positions. While it doesn't affect the main plot, it subtly impacts the film's visual continuity. To manage this, the production team used careful camera angles and framing to disguise the fluctuations. Still, once noticed, it's hard to ignore. The revolving door of extras unintentionally makes Shawshank seem far larger than it likely would be. It's a minor inconsistency, but one that reflects real limitations during the film's production and adds an odd layer of realism to repeat viewings. Number 16. The Shining reference. A subtle but fascinating Easter egg in The Shawshank Redemption is the appearance of the number 237 outside Red's prison cell. For many viewers, this detail may seem unimportant or easily overlooked. But for fans of Stephen King, the number carries significant weight. Room 237 is a central element in King's novel The Shining and its 1980 film adaptation directed by Stanley Kubrick. In that story, Room 237 is the most haunted and disturbing location in the Overlook Hotel. Its presence in Shawshank is not likely a coincidence. Knowing Darabont's fidelity to the king's universe, the number was perhaps added as a subtle homage to The Shining. While Shawshank and The Shining perceptibly differ from each other in narrative, they nonetheless tackle the same themes: isolation, mental endurance, and the response of man to any form of confinement, be it in prison or a haunted hotel. Thus, the dismissal of 237 outside Wells's cell could be a subtle homage to such shared psychological struggles. Interestingly enough, such a detail has no real bearing on the narrative of Shawshank. It is not mentioned by any of the characters and does not affect plot resolution. But the placement has an intention behind it, seemingly directing the gaze of those who know King well. Could Darabont have spun the number out of a hat? Perhaps, but the appearance of 237 is simply too specific to be arbitrary. This sort of referentiality adds a dimension of intertextuality for the attentive viewer. While it doesn't affect the storyline, it strengthens the film's kinship with Stephen King's larger fictional universe. A small detail, but one that shows the attention given to creating a movie that rewards the average viewer and devoted King follower alike. Number 15. The movie feels kind of familiar. One aspect of The Shawshank Redemption that might feel strangely familiar to some viewers is its structural similarity to Martin Scorsese's Goodfellas. While the two films differ in subject matter, one focuses on mob life and the other on life inside a prison, they share several storytelling techniques. Both films rely heavily on narration, use a non-linear sense of time, and feature carefully edited montages that cover large time spans. According to some reports, Frank Darabont even watched Goodfellas weekly during production to study how Scorsese managed tone and pacing across multiple decades. Narration is a central element that links both films. In Goodfellas, Henry Hill's voiceover drives the audience through years of criminal activity, while in Shawshank, Red's narration offers personal insight into life inside the prison and Andy's journey. This storytelling method builds emotional depth and helps streamline long timelines. It also creates a sense of intimacy, allowing the viewer to feel more connected to the narrator's perspective. The editing styles of both films also share a deliberate rhythm. Shawshank uses montages and transitional shots, like the library's construction or changes in prison leadership, in a way that echoes Goodfellas' fast-paced visual style. These sequences are efficient, emotionally resonant, and maintain momentum without losing clarity. This similarity raises an interesting question. Was Darabont influenced by Goodfellas, or was he simply using effective cinematic tools? Either way, the result is a tightly constructed narrative that feels smooth and engaging, even over the span of 20 years. For viewers familiar with both films, the resemblance is hard to miss. Number 14. The Maggot Mandate. One unusual production detail in The Shawshank Redemption involves a single maggot, and it actually delayed filming. In the scene where the elderly inmate Brooks feeds a maggot to his pet crow, Jake, the production team originally planned to use a live maggot. However, the American Humane Association objected. They stated that feeding a live maggot to a bird on screen would be considered animal cruelty toward the maggot. This concern, though specific and rarely considered by viewers, halted production until a solution could be found. To continue shooting, the crew was required to find a maggot that was already dead before being used in the scene. This requirement meant searching through containers until they found one that met the condition. Only once that was done could the scene with Brooks and Jake proceed as planned. It's a moment that lasts just seconds on screen, but took additional effort to meet ethical filming standards. This level of scrutiny isn't uncommon when animals are involved in a production, but it highlights how even the smallest elements can require oversight. While some may question whether this level of concern was necessary, it reflects the thorough guidelines enforced to protect all forms of life, even insects. For viewers, the maggot appears lifeless in the final cut, which aligns with the Humane Association's requirements. Most wouldn't notice or think twice about it, but it's a reminder that filmmaking often involves careful negotiations between creativity and compliance. Number 13. Red's smoking stipulation. A subtle but meaningful detail in The Shawshank Redemption is that Red, despite frequently handling and distributing cigarettes, is never seen smoking one himself. As the prison's go-to man for obtaining contraband, Red is often shown supplying other inmates with cigarettes. Yet throughout the entire film, he doesn't light one up. This detail might go unnoticed during a casual viewing, but it's clearly intentional once you start looking for it. Red's choice not to smoke, especially in a setting where smoking is common, could reflect something deeper about his character. It suggests a quiet self-control or detachment from the behaviors of the prison population. While Red admits to committing a serious crime in his youth, he carries himself with a sense of introspection and balance that separates him from more destructive inmates. His restraint may be one way the filmmakers subtly reinforce that. This decision might also serve a symbolic purpose. By not smoking, Red appears cleaner, less corrupted, despite being in a place surrounded by guilt and vice. He participates in the prison economy but keeps a personal distance from some of its darker habits. This adds dimension to his role as the film's calm, reflective narrator. Whether it was a scripted character choice or Morgan Freeman's own preference, Red's smoking abstinence is a small but deliberate detail that adds quiet depth to his character. Number 12. Where are the accents? One noticeable detail in The Shawshank Redemption is the absence of New England accents, despite the story being set in Maine. Stephen King's novella, Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption, takes place in a fictional Maine prison, and the regional setting plays a significant role in King's larger literary universe. However, in the film, none of the characters speak with the distinctive Maine or broader New England accent. This choice may not stand out to all viewers, but it's a clear departure from the original setting. From a practical standpoint, this was probably the case. The filming was done in Mansfield, Ohio, and most of the cast members and extras were not from New England. To force accents upon actors who couldn't do them might easily lead to performances that were inconsistent with the true character or needlessly distracting. Probably, instead of this risk, the filmmakers have chosen to let their actors speak in their natural voices. While the decision may undermine some regional authenticity, it does not take away from the emotional power of the film. The performances remain strong and credible, without precision in accenting. For the majority of viewers, the absence of local dialects goes unnoticed. For die-hard fans of King's World or Maine, however, it might be perceived as a bit of a missed detail. Just a small inconsistency in the otherwise tight ship the film has going. Number 11. The grass is always greener. One of the more subtle pieces of visual symbolism in The Shawshank Redemption appears during the rooftop scene, where Andy and several inmates are tarring a roof under the watchful eye of the guards. In the background of this scene, viewers can see lush green grass just beyond the prison walls. This contrast between the bleak gray prison and the vibrant green outside isn't accidental. It serves as a visual metaphor for hope, freedom, and the life that exists beyond confinement. The phrase, "the grass is always greener on the other side," becomes real here. The prison yard is dusty and grim, while the world appears lush and alive. Visually, it complements Andy's mental image of hope that he has maintained against an oppressive environment. The other inmates may not see or care about the view outside. For Andy, however, it is worth holding on to. Director Frank Darabont uses this sparingly and in great effect. It is not indicated by any dialogue or narrative, but purely through the shot itself, with a moment when the setting becomes part of the storytelling to bolster one of the film's main themes without detracting from the characters. Most people remember this rooftop scene for the cold beer and momentary sense of normalcy within the inmates. To the more observant, however, The environment surrounding it quietly reinforces the emotional and symbolic depths of Andy's journey. The green grass is not just the background, it is the very foreshadowing. Number 10. Morgan Freeman's Mugshot. One detail that even keen-eyed viewers may overlook in The Shawshank Redemption is the mugshot shown on Red's parole documents. While it appears to be a younger version of Morgan Freeman, the face in that photo is actually Alfonso Freeman, Morgan Freeman's real-life son. The filmmakers needed a believable image of a younger Red for authenticity, and Alfonso's resemblance to his father made him a natural fit. This small casting decision added realism to a crucial moment without requiring extensive photo editing or makeup effects. Alfonso Freeman didn't just appear in the mugshot. He also had a small uncredited role in the film as one of the inmates who shouts, "Fresh fish," during Andy's first night at Shawshank. Though brief, his vocal cameo and on-screen presence show how small background roles can still contribute to a film's overall authenticity. His inclusion in two different forms also speaks to the flexibility and resourcefulness often required during film production. Using a family member as a stand-in is not unusual in Hollywood, especially when physical resemblance is essential. In this case, it allowed for a natural-looking transition between Red's past and present. The mugshot moment may seem minor, but it supports the film's commitment to visual continuity and character believability. For fans of Morgan Freeman or those interested in behind-the-scenes details, discovering Alfonso Freeman's dual involvement adds another layer to the film. It's a reminder that even the smallest parts of a scene are crafted with care. Get ready. This next detail will blow everything else out of the water. Number 9. Making an exit. Thanks to an exodus. One of the most cleverly placed symbolic details in The Shawshank Redemption is the location where Andy Dufresne hides his rock hammer inside a hollowed-out Bible. But it's not just any section of the Bible. When the warden flips through it briefly during a cell inspection, he opens it to the Book of Exodus. This choice is far from random. Exodus refers to a mass departure or escape, and in biblical context, it tells the story of the Israelites' liberation from slavery in Egypt. For Andy, this becomes a subtle, ironic clue foreshadowing his eventual escape from Shawshank. This detail fits snugly into the film's grand themes of redemption and spiritual liberation. Andy is characterized as a hopeless romantic. The Bible is filled with connotations of deliverance and the contradictions of being a place in which to hide. The choice of Exodus gives a whisper of indication toward Andy's future without laying bare his plan. The Bible enters Andy's dealings with the warden, who frequently cites scripture to justify his own actions, whilst the warden ironically uses religion to exercise control, and Andy uses it as the very opposite, an escape route. Andy's use of the Book of Exodus in that regard becomes a micro-rebellion thrust in plain sight. This detail is easily overlooked, but it works wonders. It captures the essence of Andy's elaborate escape and the filmmaker's insistence on thematic continuity. It reminds us that even this little choice in Shawshank is intended. Number 8. The callback to the creek. A subtle but meaningful visual in The Shawshank Redemption comes from a brief early scene involving a creek. When Andy Dufresne first tells Red about a hidden item buried under a tree in Buxton, he describes a specific field, a stone wall, and a volcanic glass rock. But long before this conversation, there's a quick and easy-to-miss shot of the creek itself. At the time, the location has no context and seems like just another part of the prison's natural surroundings. In retrospect, though, it becomes a powerful visual setup. This early shot is a form of cinematic foreshadowing. Director Frank Darabont includes the creek quietly, without narration or dialogue, letting it sit in the background. By doing so, he plants the seed for what will later become Andy's escape route and final moment of peace. When Andy eventually crawls through the prison sewer and emerges into freedom, it's in this very creek. The callback isn't obvious unless you're looking for it, but it adds narrative weight to the location. This kind of visual callback is not accidental. It reflects Darabont's commitment to detailed storytelling and rewards viewers who pay close attention. By showing the creek early, he adds cohesion to the film's arc without spoon-feeding the audience. Ultimately, the creek becomes more than a setting. It symbolizes Andy's cleansing, rebirth, and liberation, all subtly hinted at much earlier in the film. Number 7. Those are Frank Darabont's hands. A lesser-known production detail in The Shawshank Redemption involves director Frank Darabont directly stepping into the film, literally. In several key close-up shots of Andy Dufresne's hands, the hands shown are not Tim Robbins, but Darabont's. These shots include moments such as Andy carving his name into the wall, placing the needle on the record player, and flipping through pages in the Bible. The decision wasn't made for stylistic reasons, but due to time constraints and logistical challenges during filming. Close-ups like these often require precise coordination and repeated takes, which can be difficult to schedule with a lead actor who is needed on other sets. Rather than delay production or pull Robbins away from other scenes, Darabont, who had a clear vision of how he wanted the actions performed, stepped in to film these moments himself. It was a practical solution that also ensured the exact framing he wanted. This kind of involvement from a director is not uncommon, especially when specific movements or timing are critical to the shot. Darabont's decision reflects his hands-on approach and attention to detail. It also allowed the film to move forward efficiently without compromising visual quality. For viewers, these scenes go unnoticed unless pointed out. But for those aware of the switch, it's a reminder of the many unseen choices that shape a film's final form. Number 6. Andy's strange sewer. One often debated aspect of The Shawshank Redemption involves the sewer pipe that Andy Dufresne uses to escape. The film shows Andy crawling through 500 yards of pipe filled with human waste, ultimately breaking it open with a rock and emerging into a creek. While this sequence is powerful and symbolic, the plumbing logistics raise questions. Could a prisoner realistically break open a pressurized sewer pipe from the inside? And would it lead so directly to a freshwater creek? The sewer appears to be a pressurized system, which would likely require significant external force or mechanical tools to break. Andy uses a rock to hammer at the pipe until it bursts. While this creates a dramatic visual, experts have pointed out that most sewer lines wouldn't rupture so easily from the inside, especially in a large correctional facility. The durability and thickness of such pipes typically require outside intervention or tools not available to inmates. Another issue lies in the connection between the sewer and the clean, flowing creek. In reality, untreated sewage wouldn't be directly emptied into a body of water used for natural runoff or recreation. Regulations and environmental norms, even during the 1960s, would likely prevent such a direct flow, raising doubts about the accuracy of this portrayal. Still, cinematic license is often used to prioritize emotional payoff over strict realism. While the sewer escape may not be perfectly accurate, it effectively supports the themes of rebirth, struggle, and freedom, core elements of the story. Number 5. Andy's anti-aging problem. One noticeable inconsistency in The Shawshank Redemption is how little Andy Dufresne and Ellis Red Redding visibly age over the film's 19-year timeline. The story spans from the late 1940s to the mid-1960s, yet both characters appear almost the same in their final scenes as they do early in the film. This lack of visible aging can be jarring, especially when the film is otherwise praised for its realism and attention to detail. Age makeup or subtle visual cues could have in gradually indicating aging, graying hair, facial wrinkles, or decreased mobility. Minimal physical transformation was, however, preferred in the movie. Some may take the line that Andy and Red have just aged well, but the absence of aging markers makes immersion challenging for the viewers, expecting visual continuity over 20 years. It is not clear whether this is a conscious stylistic choice or just an oversight in the production work. Practically, it would make filmmaking much messier, if not distracting from the performance. Perhaps even more possible, though, was that whatever emotional arc this movie might have had took precedence over accuracy in visual representation. However, that contrast will be worse when other characters like Brooks are seen to have actually aged. Especially glaring examples would be in parole board scenes or at the beach with Andy. Hence, the age gap does not affect the story's effectiveness, but it can be perceived in finer detail. It's a trivial detail, but it's something that die-hard fans and critics have noted multiple times. Number 4. Andy's yards in a mile problem. One often overlooked mistake in The Shawshank Redemption is a numerical inaccuracy involving Andy Dufresne's escape. During Red's iconic narration, he describes Andy crawling through 500 yards. That's just shy of half a mile. However, this statement is mathematically incorrect. In reality, 500 yards equals 1,500 feet, while half a mile is 2,640 feet. This means Andy's crawl was significantly shorter than half a mile, closer to 0.28 miles. This discrepancy likely slipped past many viewers, as the statement is delivered during a highly emotional and dramatic sequence. It helps build the mythic image of Andy's escape, making it sound more extreme and harrowing. Still, for attentive viewers or anyone familiar with basic conversions, the math doesn't hold up. It's a rare instance where the film trades factual accuracy for dramatic flair. Was this a deliberate exaggeration to enhance the story's emotional impact? Possibly. It wouldn't be the first time a script rounded numbers for emphasis, but it's also possible that the mistake was unintentional, an oversight that simply made it through final editing. Either way, it stands out once noticed. Ultimately, this numerical error doesn't affect the film's themes or narrative. However, it remains a curious slip in an otherwise carefully crafted movie. It's a small reminder that even acclaimed films aren't immune to simple mistakes. Number 3. Familiar faces. One detail that fans of director Frank Darabont or Stephen King might recognize in The Shawshank Redemption is the presence of familiar faces from other Darabont-directed or King-adapted films. Darabont has a pattern of working with a recurring group of actors, and Shawshank is no exception. Several performers in the film would go on to appear in later King projects, most notably The Green Mile, 1999, and The Mist, 2007, both of which Darabont directed. For example, Jeffrey Demon, who played the district attorney in Shawshank, later took on major roles in The Green Mile and The Mist. William Sadler, who portrayed Haywood, also appeared in The Mist and has worked with Darabont multiple times. These recurring collaborations may reflect the director's trust in certain actors who understand his style and tone, especially when adapting emotionally layered material like King's work. This casting approach adds a layer of continuity for viewers familiar with Darabont's filmography. It can also create a kind of unofficial Darabont-King universe that sharp-eyed fans enjoy spotting. Whether intentional or simply a product of professional loyalty, the reuse of actors gives these films a consistent feel that complements the shared themes across King's stories. While these cameos and roles don't impact the Shawshank plot directly, they highlight the collaborative nature of Darabont's productions. Recognizing these familiar faces can enhance the viewing experience for those who appreciate the connections within King's adapted works. Number 2. Tax Day. One subtle historical inaccuracy in The Shawshank Redemption involves a reference to Tax Day. In an early scene, Red mentions April 15th as the deadline, but this wasn't accurate for the time period. In the 1940s, when much of the film is set, Tax Day in the United States was actually March 15th. The IRS didn't officially change the date to April 15th until 1955. This detail may not affect the story, but it does stand out for viewers with knowledge of U.S. tax history. The mistake occurs during scenes where Andy Dufresne begins managing finances for prison staff. His tax knowledge becomes a way to earn favor with guards and gain certain privileges. Red's casual mention of April 15th is likely intended to signal Andy's value, but it unintentionally introduces a small anachronism. Since the line is part of narration, it's possible the date was modernized for clarity. This type of error is not uncommon in period films. Writers and directors often weigh accuracy against audience familiarity. Most viewers recognize April 15th as tax day, so the change likely felt minor. Still, it's a factual slip in a film known for its realism and attention to detail. Though small, this inaccuracy shows how even careful productions can contain minor historical missteps that attentive viewers might catch. Hold up. Our number one pick is coming, and it will leave you speechless. Number 1. Tim Robbins's camera tricks. Tim Robbins, who plays Andy Dufresne in The Shawshank Redemption, is notably tall, standing around 6 feet 5 inches. While height may seem like a minor characteristic, it presented a unique challenge for the filmmakers. Andy's height could have made him appear too physically dominant in certain scenes, especially next to shorter cast members or in confined prison settings. To maintain visual balance and character dynamics, the filmmakers used careful framing and camera angles to manage how tall Robbins appeared on screen. Director Frank Darabont and his cinematography team employed a range of visual strategies. In group scenes, Robbins is often seated, standing farther from the camera, or framed from the waist up. These techniques reduced the emphasis on his height without altering his performance. In contrast, Morgan Freeman, who plays Red and is about 6 feet 2 inches tall, required less adjustment in shared shots but was still occasionally positioned on platforms or steps to maintain consistency. These visual tricks were subtle but effective. Viewers unfamiliar with Robbins's real height likely wouldn't notice any manipulation. Yet, the decision reflects how filmmakers manage physical disparities to preserve character dynamics and story flow. Robbins's performance remains central, but the technical work around him ensured he didn't unintentionally overshadow the ensemble. It's a behind-the-scenes example of filmmaking precision, balancing authenticity with visual coherence. Thanks for watching. If you caught something we missed or have your own theory about The Shawshank Redemption, drop it in the comments. We'd love to hear it. Don't forget to like the video, hit subscribe for more deep dives, and tap the bell so you never miss an upload. And if you're ready for more hidden details and film breakdowns, click on the next video on your screen now.